Is Apple out of ideas? Hey there, friends on YouTube. My name is Jason, sometimes known as the JTL. This is Painfully Honest Tech, so honest it hurts. This is your first time here. Thanks for stopping by, and if you've been here before, thanks for coming back. Let's just get straight into the business. I know, another clickbait title, but I'm telling you, this is a serious question. A serious question I'm asking to you. Is Apple no longer capable of creating game-changing products the way they once did? There's evidence for, maybe evidence against, and I want to take a good, hard look at what Apple has done and see if we can come up with an answer. Of course, the look in the rear view is always colored by a tinge of nostalgia, but thinking back to other moments in Apple's history, we can point to things like early computing devices, bringing in the graphical user interface, although yes, I know they stole it from somebody else. Later, there was the iMac, which came at a moment where Apple desperately needed a success, and Steve Jobs rode back in on the white horse and saved the day, delivered a machine that changed the way we looked at home computing forever. Then there was the iPod, which changed the way we listened to music forever. And later, we had the iPhone, which brought a lot of that stuff all together into one thing and became the hub of our digital lives. Or at least, the digital lives of those of you who use iPhones. Yes, I know Android did the same thing for other people, but this is a video about Apple, so if you want to comment about how Android blah blah blah, you gotta give credit where credit is due. Most companies would be lucky to come up with one paradigm-shifting device in their existence, and Apple has seemed to come up with one after the other over decades. For the most part, the ideas, the innovation, that all came from Steve Jobs. Jobs was a polarizing individual, but he had the ability to somehow see beyond the present to see what was possible, and he was able to inspire or coerce or slave drive the folks that worked for him and his company to create those devices. When Steve Jobs was in charge of Apple, the mantra was routinely, the customer doesn't know what they want until we give it to them. And a lot of the time, that was absolutely true. Just look at any of the devices I just mentioned. It's easy to argue that we don't know what we wanted before Apple gave it to us. But Steve Jobs died in 2011. He left Tim Cook in charge, and as the story goes, Jobs told him not to try to be him, but to do what he thought was right for the company. And I don't doubt that Cook has done that. But Tim Cook is many things. He has grown the company to a place where at its peak, it was the highest valued company ever. Now that peak didn't last long, and there are a lot of people retconning a lot of their thoughts about Tim Cook's performance based on Apple's recent struggles, but Apple's success in the years since Steve Jobs passed have benefited from Cook's skills with management, supply chain, etc., etc. The iPhone grew to be the most dominant single model of phone in the world, and Tim Cook's management had a lot to do with that. But does Apple still have that magic? Can they still get their groove on? The ability to create something from whole cloth that changes how we live our daily lives. Let's be clear, I'm not saying that Apple has not made good products, nor am I claiming that the products they've released since Steve Jobs passed on didn't improve the products that already existed. What I'm asking is, has Apple ceased to be the groundbreaking company it was and become something a little bit more pedestrian? They are generally very good at making money, and they have continued to make good, reliable, great-looking products. Well, in recent years, reliability has suffered, and sometimes because they were trying to innovate. Butterfly keyboard, anyone. But let's run down the list of Apple's additions post Steve Jobs and see how they fare against the list we mentioned earlier. iPhone. Yes, not a device that came after Steve Jobs, but after Jobs died, they buckled to market pressure and went away from the one iPhone model and came out with the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus, the latter with that much larger screen that Jobs would have not approved of based on his public feelings about phablet devices. The iPhone 6 also ushered in a new design, the sleek aluminum pebble-like body that does have its own charm. But compared to the iconic design of the iPhone 5S and the phone, the previous iPhone model is decidedly less exciting. To make matters worse, Apple found themselves quickly embroiled in controversy over that new phone and its design. The phone, especially the larger phone, was, let's say, prone to bending. It blew up in a big way, and only last year, 2018, did Apple admit to knowing that the phones had a greater chance of bending than previous phones, and they didn't do anything about it. In later designs, they used stronger aluminum, and that mitigated the problem, but Bendgate was a major misstep that Apple handled badly and continued to handle badly for years. Jobs was known for not handling these same kinds of things well himself, with the whole "you're holding it wrong" iPhone 4 signal issues, but still, you'd think that they might learn at some point. Fast forward to 2018, the iPhone did not see any kind of major cosmetic update until the iPhone X, which also did away with the home button. The most recent phones released, the iPhone XS, XS Max, and iPhone XR, have failed to perform in the market as expected. Apple has taken a steep dive in valuation over the last couple of months due to those issues. And just for my own sake here, I'm going to mention that Apple also took away the 3.5mm headphone jack with the iPhone 7, a move that most believe Jobs would never have allowed given his love for music. Wireless headphones are still not yet good enough to replace wired, and he would have known that. All in all, though, a pattern of taking stuff away in order to innovate seems to have become Apple's MO in the last 5 years or so. But what about the new products Apple has released since Steve Jobs was no longer available? The biggest would be the Apple Watch, AirPods, and what else? The HomePod? Don't even get me started about the HomePod. The iMac Pro is new, but it's just a more powerful iMac with a different paint job. That's not really anything new, although it is a great computer, and they haven't been able to release a Pro desktop computer since not very long after Steve Jobs died, and the one they did release was a colossal failure in engineering. It's just really sad. The fact that they still sell that computer today, 6 years later, is absurd, is insulting. I digress. Beyond the Apple Watch, the company has not really released a single new product. The AirPods are great, but really it's the W1 chip inside that makes them special. Otherwise, they're just mediocre sounding wireless earbuds. To be fair, Apple has improved a lot of the products they already sold, but they've also screwed up a lot of them as well. The aforementioned butterfly keyboards, the Bendgate, the Mac Pro, all that kind of stuff. I could make a pretty long list here, but you tell me, what do you think should also be on the list of Apple missteps? The Apple Watch has turned out to be a pretty amazing product in its own right, just now in the 4th generation beginning to mature and show what possibilities it might have. There's a lot more room for growth to come with the Apple Watch, and the Apple Watch, honestly, may actually point to Apple's future. But when you realize that the Apple Watch is the only major new product Apple has created since Steve Jobs' death, now 8 years ago, it becomes clear that Apple is not the company it was when Steve Jobs was around. Now the balloon is starting to burst with iPhone sales flagging and stuff like that. People are recognizing that maybe the Apple wave is dying down. Maybe Apple's going to surprise me. Maybe there is a new paradigm-shifting Apple product just over the horizon. But if there is, I haven't seen it. Have you? Thanks so much for being here. I really do appreciate it. Let me know down in the comments if you agree with this, disagree with this, if you think that there have been other Apple products that have come out since Steve Jobs passed away that have that are new and inventive and paradigm shifting. I would love to know, so let's talk down in the comments. If this was your first time here, you want to come back, well, there are ways that you can do that. We can just I'll just show you a graphic of how that might happen. If you've been here before, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for coming back and supporting the channel. I really do appreciate it. Once again, my name is Jason, sometimes known as the JTL. This is Painfully Honest Tech, so honest it hurts. Until the next time, I'm out.